A few years ago, a study was conducted on how a driver's familiarity with his or her surroundings, the neighborhood, affected that driver's response time in emergency situations. Surprisingly, the researchers found that the more familiar a driver was with his or her surroundings, the slower the driver's response time to emergency situations, the longer the driver took to brake in front of a crossing pedestrian or stop so as to avoid crashing into the car in front of them. The researchers concluded that familiarity with one's surroundings breeds a kind of blindness, inattention, sluggishness that is in fact very dangerous. The research helps explain why so many of our accidents occur close to home. What is true of driving is also true in the spiritual life. In the gospel, Jesus is preaching to his neighbors, the people who, on a natural level, were most familiar with him. Yet they are blind to the glory of God the Son shining through the humanity of Jesus. Jesus then goes on to mention two figures from the Old Testament, the widow of Zarephath and Naaman from our first reading. He speaks of these two in glowing terms. What do these two have in common? Both of them were foreigners. Both of them were Gentiles. Both of them were unfamiliar with the people of Israel and the revelation given to them by God. Yet in their unfamiliarity, God opened their eyes, gave them fresh vision to behold Him and to respond to His goodness and His love in their lives. The fact is, we who have been practicing the faith for a long time are susceptible to this blindness of familiarity. We, in this season of Lent, are called to have fresh eyes, to see again with renewed vision the love of God so close to us. How can we do this? One way we can respond to this invitation to see afresh, to see with new eyes, is to turn to the more recent members of our church, the new members of our church, people who have come into the church from other religions, people who are preparing to enter the church at Easter. If we know such a person, it's so important to ask them, what did they see in the church? What did they see in the gospel that drew them to it, that drew them to recognize Jesus, His love, and His mercy? Hearing their story, listening to their words will give us fresh eyes to behold Jesus in His glory, in His goodness, afresh and with deeper and renewed love. May our familiarity with Jesus and His church never blind us to His goodness, but ever refresh our awe before our God, who is ever ancient and ever new.